Ago, a friend of mine, Dave Orlasky, told me, you got to bring Zane to Cleveland. This guy is amazing. And I listened to him, fortunately. And for years now, we have hosted a apprenticeship program that is 7 weekends of in-depth training where we go out to nature sites, we do all sorts of initiations, and really have this amazing experience of shamanism, specifically the Paco tradition of South America. But I have Zane here with me to talk a little bit about the program, and I will pan out now. You can see in front of us we have a mesa set up that we build around or we have the class centered around the mesa. And I'll let Zane kind of start speaking about his background with how he came into the tradition and what we are offering in the 7 weekend apprenticeship.
Yeah, this tradition has been something that has completely transformed my life. Took me from a place of depleted energy and led me to a place where many of my dreams effortlessly have come to fruition. And it all started about 2000, around the year 2000. I was trained in Reiki, and I had several other aspects of healing that I was working with. My father was a Baptist missionary preacher, so spiritual healing and those things were always close to me, and I always served kind of as a spiritual to my friends. But I always knew there was more to all this. And it was around the year 2000 or 2001, I was in a very, very bad car accident. We actually went over a bridge. I received a massive concussion, and from that and from the mishandling of things at the hospital, I ended up being injected with something that I'm allergic to for a CAT scan, and that led me into a 3-day coma. During that 3-day coma, I had a few very eye-opening experiences, and one of those eye-opening experiences happened to be my grandmother, who was still alive at the time, showing me around in this place on the other side of a rainbow. But deeper than that, there came a point where I believed that I was communicating directly my higher self and its connection to the divine, the goddess, God, creator, creatrix. At that moment, I received some very profound advice, and that advice was I could keep living my life the way I had been, dabbling in some spiritual stuff, performing some healings, or I could, and my life would be okay. Never feel truly fulfilled because I was missing out on an aspect of who I was to become. So they basically, I came out of the coma with a sentence saying, you make your decision now or never. You decide now to follow and really commit yourself to a spiritual path, to the path that you know you should be in, or you continue down the path you are going down, and you will probably, though you have a fun life, you will find yourself a type of statistic. So this was a very sobering moment in my life, and it changed the course of my entire life. After that, I got very serious. Though I always thought I was serious, I got more serious. And during that seriousness, there was an encounter with a spirit that came to me. And the spirit taught me all these interesting techniques and things. And one of them had to do with a type of digestion of heavy energy. And I'm giving kind of a long form of this story.
The first time I've ever heard this story. There's always something new. I've known the man for years, and this is the first time I've ever heard these little hidden tidbits, the nooks and cranny tours, Zane Curfman.
Yeah, so I was really trying to fulfill my mission that I felt I had in this world. And one of those techniques, like I said, was a digestion technique. I didn't really know it as a digestion technique. It was this way of connecting energy through my central column and then transforming it and letting it expand out. And so this is something relatively different than anything I had ever heard before. You know, in Reiki and in all these forms of healing, you are just flowing an energy through you into the recipient. But in this, there was an aspect of almost taking the energy that they're having a struggle with and bringing it inside of yourself so that you could transform it into something else. That got me started on looking for to see if anyone in the world had this technique. And I found that there was a small group of indigenous people in Peru, high in the mountains above Cusco, Peru, and that they had retained much of their ancient spiritual knowledge. Because they were so far removed from Western culture, they still lived their ancient form of life. These people are called the Quero. And the Quero live at 1,600 to 2,100,000 feet above sea level. And this is a very harsh climate. No trees grow there, very few plants can grow there. It's a harsh way of life. It's just them, the mountains, and their llama for the most part. So they had to keep alive these where human beings fit into the equation. So as then I started looking frantically for someone that could teach this, someone who had the ability to. And that led me to my first teacher in the path, a man named Juan Nunez del Prado. And Juan's father was the anthropologist that first discovered, we call it discovered, the Quero people. Of course, they had been around long before that, but he was the one that discovered that there were Quechuan Indians living high in the mountains with an almost unbroken way of life. Being an anthropologist, he wanted to get more connected and closer to that. My teacher, Juan, basically grew up in an environment where he was going to these villages sometimes, communicating with these people. And though it was all guised in kind of an academic thing, there was a further thing where Juan was being exposed to the deep secrets of this tradition. And unlike most native traditions, this tradition is kind of led by a prophecy. And one of the parts of that prophecy was one of a certain interesting encounters or interesting phenomenon happened, one of which being the discovery of an ancient site in Peru. Then the Quero, who had been keeping this tradition and trying to keep it from falling apart, they were to start teaching it to the children of the North. And this was for the betterment and growth of humanity. And we consider ourselves now in the time of the gathering. Right now is a time when all people are coming from all of these distinct backgrounds, and they're all bringing their information together. And as they bring this information together, there's going to be places where their spiritual understandings don't match up. Now, we in this tradition don't think, oh, let's throw out what doesn't match and just keep what does. We actually say, in those differences is the gold. Because when you have two independent groups in natural science, and each of those groups discover something that is complementary, but a little bit different, you can almost be for sure that there is a law of nature behind it. Though both groups may have it a little askew, by looking at what differences they came up with, we get a more full understanding of the whole process. And that's what this time of the gathering is all about. That's why this tradition was shared, was to add its unbroken lineage to all the other lineages of spiritual knowledge. Now, outside of that very lengthy introduction, the processes is the whole 7-month program. Sometimes it goes 8 months, a little longer, but the whole program is based around a process of spiritual development, a tried and true process of spiritual development that has been used since the beginnings of the tradition. And it is also about growing something inside of yourself, something very special, your own uniqueness, finding a way to grow your uniqueness. Now, as we go through that 7-month program, we slowly build this configuration. This configuration is Mesa Curindero, the Qatari Mesa, which is named after the guiding principle of this tradition and the process of development, which is Qatari. But the Qatari Mesa has different fields in it, and each field has different items that we slowly collect. These items reflect and contain the energy of a message or a lesson we learn over the different weekends, so that we can encapsulate it in something and then use that medicine to help the world. As we move through it, this is unlike a series of workshops that you may be familiar with. This actually takes us through this process, and as we're processing through things, there's almost like a purging that starts to happen inside of our energetic system. Limiting beliefs, obstructions inside of ourselves, these energetic imprints start to slowly come up. And that's a good thing. It slowly comes up to the surface. And as that comes up to the surface, we start to realize what things have been holding us back in our own lives. And then we start to realize that since they were triggered by that weekend had already given us the medicine to correct it. So all we have to do is look into how to correct those things based on the medicine of the previous weekend that initiated it. So as we move through that, we work as a group. We work as a community to help each other. Because some of these lessons, some of these imprints that come up are very disturbing at times. So we have a Facebook group that is dedicated to the program. This is one way that we can communicate back and forth with each other. We also have, and Hank's going to love this little point.
Okay.
We're starting an Apprenticeship aspect to the work as well. And this is a little separate time for everyone to come up and acknowledge what they have been dealing with, and acknowledge it to these spirits of the tradition, acknowledge it to each other, and then we will work on those problems. Depending on how grave they are, the more intense problems will be ceremonially worked out during the weekend. The people who are having more problems where they just need a little guidance, that will also be given during the weekends. As we work through this, we are rediscovering our sacred environment. And this is one of the most important things. My teachers, originally Juan Nunez del Prado, and then later the Q'ero Indians themselves, have charged me with this mission, if you will. And the mission is that every place is sacred. You know, everyone right now flies to places like Peru, flies to places like India. They fly there because they know that there is a spirituality that has been embraced in those places. And they think that that's the only place they can discover that spirituality. Part of my job is to help people see the sacredness in their own environment. And by doing these rituals, performing these plays, if you will, in nature, we start to connect what we call the Apus and Nustas, the male and female nature spirits. We start to connect them back into the sacred grids of South America, the Pachamama Gaia matrix. And as we are connecting these through what we call seke lines, some people might know them as ley lines, these are man-made ley lines, we're connecting them to land masses in Peru that have been celebrated since the beginning, that have always been loved and always received that spiritual dimension. And they communicate through that line to the sites here, helping to awaken them again. Because these traditions are not based only in one place, they're based everywhere. Everywhere there is the sun, the moon, the wind, the earth. And we are learning how to tap into the sacred dimensions of these things in this program. We are also learning healing techniques. The healing techniques first are applied to the self. Why? Because we have to allow whatever lessons come up through the weekend to be processed through ourselves. Once we process them through ourselves, those imprints come up and we learn to correct those imprints. We learn to fix these things within ourselves. We then truly develop the medicine to help our brothers and sisters in the same kind of issues. And this is us becoming a torchbearer. We're igniting an inner light of spirituality. And this inner light is so bright that even in another's darkest moment, we can light a light for them and lead them to their own inner light. Because it's all about empowerment. It's not about power over. It's about the sharing of the wealth of being a person, developing your unique self, and then stepping into your role as some type of leader. It could just be a leader of your family. It could be a leader of your organization. It could help you to set up your own business, a leader in your field. But it will instill within you the confidence to truly express your personal power in this world.
That practically brings up the first question that I was going to ask you. Like, some people aren't looking to be professional healers, and that the program really is more about the inner refinement and
Absolutely.
and then just being that inspiration to everyone, regardless of that role is as a healer or as a friend or something else.
Yeah, it's about learning to push our limitations. The greatest thing given in this program is learning how to push our limitations so that we can start to dream our world into being, the art of dream weaving. As we start to dream our world into being, we have the confidence and the strength to move forward with our dreams. Now imagine, nothing else but that. You have the power and strength to move forward with your dreams. No matter how scary that is, you start to do it. Imagine the ripple effect of that, of your children, of your friends, seeing you follow your dreams. At first they might have resistance to you being so audacious or so brave to go out there, but after a while you start to be inspirations for them. And it doesn't matter if your dream is opening a beauty salon or a restaurant or a healing practice. These techniques are useful in all spheres of human life, because they reinform to us what humanity truly is and how we can share this unique warmth, this unique radiation, kind of like the sun, with all those around us. Though there are healing techniques, many of you may never want to take any of this any further than your bedroom. This might just be your personal spiritual practice. And any way that this practice morphs for you is okay. In this tradition, you have a right to ask questions, and you have the right to try things that your teachers never taught you. You have the right to follow your own intuition. In fact, you have the responsibility to follow your own intuition and mix things up and see what the results are. And that laboratory is your life itself. It's not a conceptual thing that we're just playing out in mental daydreams and fantasies. This is something that you practice in your interactions with other humans every day.
Right. And just to cover a few things that people might have questions for. One, if you go to ShamanApprenticeshipProgram.com, there's a video where we talk a little bit more about the history and go through a little bit more, and even a meditation that we offer where Zane teaches a technique called the Saman Chakwi or Saman Jakui, depending on pronunciation. So you can also get a little flavor for the program like that. But every weekend we start on Friday night, which is kind of an opening ceremony, sometimes a field trip. Saturday is dedicated to going out to a nature spot, because one beautiful thing about this tradition is it's not about sitting inside a room and just, in your mind's eye going somewhere. You go in nature to where these energies are naturally present, doing what's called the Hatan Karpai, the great initiation. And so the first weekend we're going out, usually to Putin Bay, to the winery, and going down into the Crystal Cave, and we're having an experience in the Luma Pachamama. There's other ones where we go to waterfalls. So we're going out to these sacred sites, seeing there's people in the program that have lived in the area for years, and we take them to a place that they go, oh my gosh, I never knew it was here. Just speaking to the sacredness and this divine beauty is all around us, and we sometimes have just become so busy with the addiction of polarity that we don't see it. And so if you are inspired to check out the website, see what it's all about, and we do make available, if someone misses a weekend, we catch you up. We have a number of people who've gone through the program several times. So if one weekend doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. We record them, you can watch the video, and then we can catch you up personally in terms of the initiations. We don't record the ceremonial part of it, but the instructional part we do. And we've been very successful with people who've had to miss a weekend. They never miss a beat. They come into the next month, and they're caught up already.
Yeah, and if you're not sure, there's a low commitment way of going about it too. You could come to one class, the first class, and try it out and see if it's something for you. and then you haven't committed to the whole program, but you will get a taste of what the program is offering.
Yep.
It's a very beautiful way. The only thing about that is you must still take the classes in order. So you couldn't take like the first class and then the third class. You know, if you took the first class and you're also interested in the third, you'd have to take the second to get there, because it is, like I said, a process of personal development. And this process truly has been proven through millennia of working with people to produce stronger character in people and stronger abilities to just be human.
Another way you could kind of get a taste of what the program is, if you want to see afterwards some of the things you can do. Every month on the fourth Friday, I do a sound bath, but I open it with the Peruvian ceremony, and it's always different. And it's a great way to be exposed to a little bit of the ceremony, exposed to the language. And we also, Melissa and I will have some information nights coming up where we just kind of have a question and answer session talking about the tradition. Maybe there's something on the mesa that is drawing your attention, and we would speak to that about what that piece, what that arte is, and what you can maybe use that for in healing. And that's another way. That's how I started with it. My friend had gifted me these little chumpy stones. And at that point, we didn't even know about Zane. Same guy who told me about you gifted me these stones, and then later he had met you and then said, you got to check out Zane. And he was the one, ironically, who knew about these stones, but those stones just called to me. And for my very first Pachamama, which means Mother Earth, I knew that it just sang to my soul. And my guess is, if you're watching the video, you already know. Your own knowing tells you if this resonates with you or not. It's just a question of, are you going to choose it? And as soon as you say yes, the universe will deliver out, you know, the way of how that's going to actualize in your life. It's not a question of if, it's a question of how then. And you just need to be open and be in an allowance of receiving from the universe of how this program could actualize for you if a weekend doesn't work out or some other thing is holding you back. No. Anything else? I think we got it pretty much covered.
Also, if you have any concerns, if you really feel this speaks to you, but you have concerns of any type, don't be afraid to contact us. Take that step, contact Hank, contact Melissa, contact one of us, and we may be able to help you with whatever is holding you back. We have different ways of helping people, because this is a spiritual tradition, and we all would hate for someone not to be, who is truly called to it, to not be able to attend it or be part of it, just because of some issue that could be easily worked out.
Great. Well, thank you so much for watching. Again, I'll put the links in the video about 10 minutes from now or so. And you can go to ShamanApprenticeshipProgram.com. It breaks down every single weekend, gives you a little bit more insight. And you can commit today and allow that change to already start. As soon as you commit, the change starts. And you can just see things starting to change in your life. Because energetically, you're already there. And everything just starts to ripple out from that. So thanks for watching. Thank you so much for Zane. He lives hours away. He came up just to be on video to share all this with you. So we really appreciate you being here.
Oh,
all right.